Have you ever noticed how much our vocabulary has references to climbing and mountaineering embedded in it? Reaching the pinnacle of success, avoiding pitfalls, negotiating hills and valleys, achieving peak performance, and the view from the top are but some examples. I think the reason is that climbing serves as such an apt metaphor for life in general. This past October, I had the privilege of spending just over a month at what is considered by many to be the Mecca of mountaineering, the Khumbu region of the Himalayas in northern Nepal. The region is home to some of the highest peaks in the world. Some of these peaks, if you were to view them from west to east, include Cho-Oyu, Pamori, Nuptse, Lhotse, none of which are household words, I know, but you might have heard of this one, Mount Everest. Just 10 miles south of Everest stands Ama Dablam. Nepalese for mother's necklace, it is so called because the hanging glacier that adorns its face resembles the double pendant necklace worn by traditional Sherpa women. At 23,000 feet, just under actually, it's not one of the highest peaks in the region. It is considered a stepping stone climb for those who wish to then move on to an Everest attempt. I would find this ironic because of the 3 members of our team who among them had a total of 6 successful Everest summits to their credit, not one of them would reach the summit of Ama Dablam. You see, what it lacks in stature, it more than makes up for with technical challenge. A route is considered technical when it requires specialized equipment. Equipment such as crampons and ice axe to negotiate steep icy terrain, a helmet and harness, an ascender, rappel device, and of course, rope, the lifeline of every climber. These are all put to frequent use on Ama Dablam. In fact, the final 4,000 vertical feet is festooned with what is called fixed line. That is, climbing rope that is anchored at either end as well as at intermediate points. A climber will clip onto the rope for protection, but also to aid with ascent and descent. Now, to confirm that climbers possess the requisite skills to make an attempt on Ama Dablam, practice lines are set just above base camp. During our practice session, we began to notice a rather disturbing phenomenon. The rope that we were practicing on was beginning to fray. The first to say something about this was Bruce. Bruce referred to it as clothesline because it was white in color, but more so because it was very thin in diameter. Howie, a proper English gentleman whose 67 years and fastidious manner belied his grit and determination, dubbed it rubbish rope. I asked Howie, is this the stuff they expect us to climb on up there? Howie looked at me, closed his eyes, and nodded. Not the answer I wanted to hear. A sinus infection and issues with acclimatization forced me to descend the valley to recuperate, spend several days at the village. When I finally returned to base camp, I'd learned that there had been a fatality and that the culprit was the rope. In our mess tent that evening, our team leader, whose name is also Danny, said that a climber had successfully summited Ama Dablam, and while descending the tower, the most technical section of the route, the rope from which he was rappelling snapped. Some of our team could hear his screams as he fell. I lay in my tent that night, imagining what it must have been like for his wife and family to hear the news. The next morning, several of our team decided to end their climb and head back to Kathmandu. The rest of us would continue our climb in smaller groups based on our acclimatization. By the time I left base camp, I was climbing solo. My goal was to reach Camp 1, which is roughly 3,500 vertical feet. Just below Camp 1, I clipped onto one of the fixed lines to help with my ascent up a particularly steep slope. No sooner had I unclipped when I heard a yell and turned behind me to see a climber clutching a rock outcropping with his left arm and holding a torn strand of rope in his right. Now I'm questioning my decision to continue. Once at Camp 1, Danny assures me this time that the Sherpas have gone ahead and placed proper, fresh climbing rope on all technical sections. It takes 3 days for the weather to lift, and then I begin my climb to Camp 2, which at 20,000 feet is the staging area for a summit attempt. The going is slow, and it only goes slower. Every time I complete a technical section, I have to stop leaning against the rock, gasping for air and waiting for my heart rate to return to normal. As I approach the tower, there's a narrow ridge I need to traverse. Halfway across it, I lose my footing and fall to the right. The rope catches me, but now I'm 10 feet below the ridge, and I stare at the Sherpa who stares back at me, helpless. Basically I'm on my own. I have to get up there. And I know I'm not strong enough to go back up the way I came. So in a hand-over-hand manner and sort of a crab walk, I worked my way along the side of the ridge until the route descended to a point where I could regain it. When I finally got to Camp 2, utterly exhausted, I knew that for me, this was, as climbers euphemistically refer to it, my personal summit. While my first foray into Himalayan climbing was marred by tragedy, I did receive some very valuable lessons, many of which transcend the world of climbing, and that among these are the importance of tenacity, focus, perseverance, reliable equipment, and what is variously termed fate, karma, being in the right place at the right time, and dumb luck. Where are you on your expedition? Do you have your summit clearly in focus? Are you prepared for the inevitable setbacks and detours that are a part of any expedition? Because I can tell you that they never go exactly as planned. And how are you prepared to deal with failure? Do you view failure as a roadblock or a brick wall, or as perhaps the most valuable learning experience you can receive, as well as something which, when you finally taste success, makes it taste so much sweeter? And finally, what are you prepared to sacrifice to reach your summit? Anything worth having has an element of risk. But have you considered that what you stand to lose may well be more dear than what you stand to gain? I know I have. Next fall, make that autumn, I plan to return. Never say fall to a climber. I will be back in Nepal for another attempt at Ama Dablam. This time I'll be equipped with valuable experience, an enhanced training and medication regimen to deal with the acclimatization issues, as well as an assurance from Danny that this year all technical sections will be equipped with proper climbing rope, the events of last year making it clear that when rope fails, bad things happen. I look forward to coming home, sharing my successes with you, and learning of yours, because I hear that the view from the top is spectacular.